This past March, the two of us joined 7 other colleagues from across the Arab world to travel to an AJC Project Interchange delegation to Israel, AJC's signature educational program introducing Israel to leaders from around the world. This historic trip was the first delegation of leaders from countries that signed the Abraham Accords.
Our group represented some of the best and brightest minds across the Arab world, a range of young practitioners in the fields of investment, law, high-tech, agriculture, tourism, diplomacy, and energy.
Partnership and dialogue are core values shared by AJC and think tanks such as the Policy Center for the New South, where I work in Rabat, Morocco. This alignment led to my participation in Project Interchange. We're honored to introduce the next panel, Winds of Change, the New Middle East, in which we will hear from Israeli, Moroccan, Bahraini, and Emirati ambassadors to the United Nations.
But before we do, we want to explain how the Abraham Accords and Project Interchange have impacted each of us. Ever since I was in middle school, I was an early adopter of a more moderate and balanced view of the situation in Israel-Palestine. Having said that, no amount of reading or studying as a student of international relations could have prepared me for what I experienced on my first trip to Eretz Israel. The itinerary of the trip was so well crafted and so well delivered, I cannot imagine a more fulfilling and comprehensive overview of all the facets of Israeli life, culture, politics, and history, all the while never losing sight of the very human element of that storied and ancient land.
Diversity and coexistence are two concepts and experiences that are central to my Moroccan identity and also mirrored in Israeli society, especially in the city of Haifa that we were fortunate enough to visit during the program. As a Moroccan woman, the experience that stuck with me most was connecting with 2 artists of Jewish and Amazigh Moroccan descent in their home in Jerusalem, where we spoke in our mother tongue, Moroccan Darija, and sipped on Moroccan tea and heard about their particular experiences in Israel. We watched poignant segments of documentaries about identity produced by one of the artists and joined in singing Moroccan and other North African songs. What I carry with me from this experience is the undeniable link between Morocco and the Jewish Moroccan population in Israel, a link that is deeply rooted in history and reflects a unique and common heritage.
AJC Project Interchange provided us with an unmatched opportunity to learn more about Israel's reality and complexity. There is no substitute for first-hand experience when it comes to understanding Israel. Interactions with government officials, security authorities, business executives, interfaith leaders, policy analysts, educators, and media professionals helped correct misunderstandings and misperceptions and encourage greater contact with Israel and the Jewish world.
Our visit to Israel cannot be summarized by a single story or a takeaway, but the dynamic and personal essence of our experience demonstrates the potential of the Abraham Accords for everyday Arabs and Israelis.
Extremism will forever bring hostility upon individuals instead of stability and prosperity. After too many decades without peace, the next generation of Middle East leaders now has the power to overcome the long-standing narratives that have kept our region apart. Arabs and Israelis, Muslims and Jews can finally set aside their differences and unite in their resolve to find a way forward and not allow the wars of our past determine the future of our region.
It won't be easy. We face challenges ahead. Signing a piece of paper is an important step, but it will only be a true peace if we prioritize people-to-people engagement. Through programs like Project Interchange, where Arabs and Israelis directly engage with one another, we are creating a new cadre of regional advocates committed to breaking down barriers and depending on one another in ways never before imaginable. We are thankful to the supporters of Project Interchange who make this possible.
It is with this message in our hearts that I am honored to introduce the next panel, which will be moderated by Jason Isaacson, the AJC Chief Policy and Political Affairs Officer, and one of the most ardent believers in the power of Israeli-Arab engagement.
Without further ado, please welcome His Excellency Omar Hilal, Ambassador of Morocco to the United Nations, Her Excellency Lana Nusayba, Ambassador of the United Arab Emirates to the United Nations,
His Excellency Gilad Erdan, Ambassador of Israel to the United Nations, and joining us virtually, His Excellency Jamal al-Ruwai'i, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Bahrain to the United Nations.